CrossFit has the most overworked, underpaid athletes on earth. That should literally be the new slogan for the CrossFit Games. CrossFit Games, most overworked athletes on earth. Congratulations, Matt Fraser. You've just worked 8 hours a day, 6 days a week for the last 365 days to get paid slightly above average. Well done. Now, I understand this is a huge statement that CrossFitters are considered as athletes. But let's just take a moment to compare the daily life of a CrossFitter and compare it to, I don't know, any other sport. Let's really dive in deep to the top 50 athletes in CrossFit and what they actually have to do to make it in this underpaid sport. Let's look at that underlying factor of why many athletes have to work 40 hours a week while trying to train for the CrossFit Games at the same time. But first, we must trace back to our ancestors exactly what it is that they're all competing after, and that is sport. Sport is an activity involving physical exertion and skill in which an individual or team competes against another or others for entertainment. Since the dawn of recorded time, humans have been the subject of tasks requiring dedication to a specific craft, a craft that is demonstrated on a physical, mental, and emotional level. A task that pushes the body's capabilities through feats of endurance, stamina, strength, flexibility, power, speed, coordination, agility, balance, and accuracy. Sport has been used as a form of entertainment, putting humans head to head to see who can compete or complete a task better, faster, or quicker. We saw the ancient Romans be the first to test many of these modalities in the arena through gladiators, one of the first recorded forms of a full-time athlete. Yes, that's a given. These gladiators were mostly slaves fighting for their freedom, but payment in the form of one day being free is the first form of sponsorship received in human history. As the years have progressed, so has the evolution of sport, finding more ways than one to make a spectacle of something that is seemingly so simple. For basketball to tennis to the world's strongest man, people are lured to finding a team or individual that is the GOAT of their specific sport. And we have many of them around. Mike Tyson, Conor McGregor, Michael Jordan, David Beckham, Roger Federer, Tiger Woods. The list goes on. These are athletes who are at the top 0.1% of their respective sports, and they are truly the greatest of all time, and most of them have made an absolute fortune off these sports too. But ask yourself this: would these athletes be just as successful without their funding, without their adequate sponsorships, having to work full-time while trying to train, sleep, recover, eat, and compete? I'd like to think that they could, because many of these athletes came from nothing at one point. Not any or not all of them started at the top level of their sport and had over $1 million to start off with. And you might be scratching your head like, but Ty, we've got Matt Fraser, we've got Tia Claire Toomey, Rich Froning. These guys have all made a fortune off CrossFit. And I agree, they have, but it's not the top 0.1% I'm looking at. It's the top 1% of the sport, specifically the sport of CrossFit. CrossFit is a sport where the owner doesn't give a flying fuck about its competition scene. Being so focused on the true message of CrossFit, which is health, the competition scene has took a massive hit. Let's rewind to late 2018. CrossFit HQ sacked most of its media staff, which took away the regional competition and essentially deleted all forms of social media it had. Furthermore, CrossFit has been Reebok CrossFit Games for the last eternity, and only as of 2018 has started allowing athletes to wear other apparel that wasn't Reebok, hugely reducing the amount of potential sponsorship interested in CrossFit. Who I'm talking about is the men and women in the top 50 of their respective region. Let me give you guys an example. Let's take a look at the Australian regional. This is my regional, specifically the men. Let's count down the top 3 names of this regional and just give you guys an idea of what these athletes have to actually go through to make it to the games. Looking at the men's side of the competition, literally only a handful of these guys are full-time athletes. Guys such as Cam Porter and James Newbury are some of the only athletes that I know of in Australia that are a full-time athlete and don't have to work. Yes, James Newbury does own a gym and there's some sort of gym ownership going into that, and same as Cam Porter. However, these guys have made a following, have got sponsorships, and are in a position where they can pretty much train full-time uninterrupted. But let's look at the top of the leaderboard. Baden Brown, fittest in Australia by a mile. This guy came 7th overall in the Open in the world. he still works full-time as a coach at CrossFit Townsville. And you might be like, well, it sounds like it's kind of his fault for not getting a better deal with his sponsors. And you're most definitely right. But coming 7th in the world should guarantee you something. Flights and accommodation somewhere near the CrossFit Games, some sort of contractual agreement where he gets paid a wage. Nope. None of that at all. Athletes are still having to fork out their own money to travel abroad to a competition that they already paid for previously. Remember, he qualified through the Open. And before you try to defend CrossFit, it's their own fault for not accepting more sponsorships in the first place and selling their souls to Reebok. Let's take a look at the 2019/20 Open. Now, last year there was 2 Opens back to back. The first one had 358,646 people register for the Open, and then the following Open that same year in October had 239,106 people registering. Both of these Opens were both done in the 2019 year. This means CrossFit made $11.9 million from the Open alone. Even if they were to set up a contractual agreement with the top 50 Open finishers of 50,000 USDs a year, as long as these athletes post on social media, show up to CrossFit specific events, and participate in anything CrossFit related like team competitions, they would have still turned over $9.5 million. And don't give me any of this bullshit of what you may think it costs to cover the Open. Firstly, they don't even do any Open live events. That's all done by outside sources, individual competitions, and privately owned companies. Secondly, they've cancelled all forms of regional competition and actually charged specific venues to hold CrossFit-based events, like sanctioned events. So they make not only more money from that, but they don't pay any money for these athletes to get qualified for the games. Thirdly, and most importantly, it really doesn't take much time or effort to post 5 videos from the space of your backyard or your garage, I should know, onto YouTube so that people can watch how to do the movement standards for the workout. So this opens up to the argument of why does CrossFit not pay its top 50 athletes? And it really comes back to CrossFit has a growth similar to the UFC. However, with the less ability, less hype, and less fucks given by Greg Glassman, CrossFit athletes are severely underpaid and overworked. Most of these athletes train about 6 to 8 hours a day, 6 days a week while working full time. As the sport develops further, we've seen big brands like Rode, Gillette, Volkswagen, Nike, Under Armour, and Noble start to make an impact on many of these up-and-comers. But it's still going to take years and years before we see more professional athletes in CrossFit. Not including things like his competition cash prizes, Evan makes quite a bit of money from sponsorships. I should know this because he argues a good deal. A lot of CrossFit athletes kind of feel like they're being taken advantage of by their sponsors, and that's truly so. Because CrossFit athletes are so poor, they have to work so hard to get so little, they're inclined to pretty much jump at any opportunity a sponsor is going to throw at them. Whether it's selling their virginity for a bag of protein or lying to all their followers to get them to use a discount code, CrossFit athletes out there really struggle to get a little bit of money. And this is also just my opinion. Have you ever seen any football team, any basketball team, any professional level, or even Division 2 level team have to pay for their own flights and accommodation to get around to places? No. Why is it that CrossFit athletes do? Surely these venues, these events, especially the main competitions such as the CrossFit Games, should hire out a building like they used to, except this time, give all the athletes that qualified for the game a spot in the house. You might be like, Ty, that's a lot of money, but like I said, if they qualify for the top 50 in the Open, they should pretty much get a get out of jail free card by CrossFit. Every event they go to, everything they sign up for, CrossFit should pay for the registration fee. That being said, they actually have to fulfill their side of the contract, posting on social media, going to CrossFit events. This would not only make the sport more popular, but it would add more hype to different events. If you look at someone like Matt Fraser, he generally only shows up to the well-paying events. Yes, you can beg to differ that he showed up to Strength in Depth UK, but when he showed up to Strength in Depth UK, the event was sold out. This is my final thoughts about CrossFit and being underpaid. CrossFit has done a really poor job of getting good sponsorships for its sport. Now, only in the last 1 to 2 years have we seen some really big sponsorships be put onto the sport of CrossFit, giving athletes and up-and-coming athletes a little bit of confidence to know that in the future, they probably are going to have a well-set-up job and a full-time lifestyle when it comes to their training. They won't have to worry about paying the bills. They won't have to worry about paying the rent. They won't have to worry about sticking around the gym 50, 60 hours a week to try and earn a living. What do I think CrossFit could do better? CrossFit could pay more athletes through the use of the Open. The Open is a great part of the year because it allows everyone in the world to compete on a very big global scale from the comfort of their own gym. Using this format is a great way to be able to fund your athletes for the oncoming season. You could maybe start at like the top 20 and every year increase slowly until you get maybe to the top 50. But if you were to give the top 50 an annual wage of $50,000 to be paid over the course of the 52 weeks, a 12-month contractual deal that would end once the next Open starts, you'd have a lot more security for your athletes. You'd also have a lot more people willing to compete. And also, if you do add that final clause of the contract where these athletes have to compete at a certain amount of sanctioned events around the world, just to give more exposure to the sport, you would also have more viewership, more people sponsoring other events, and more money flowing through the sport itself. Lastly, it's no secret that Greg Glassman doesn't give a fuck about CrossFit Games. He's obviously really focused on CrossFit Health, and that's fine. It is his business. But if you have a think about it, he doesn't just do this because he cares. At some point, he would have had to do it for money. Yes, now he's worth over a couple of $100 million and the business of CrossFit is over $1 billion, but there must have been a point where money was important. Would he have the same opinion about CrossFit and CrossFit Health if he maybe had, let's say, $100,000 in his bank account? Probably not. Which is why it can seem kind of CrossFit comes across as a little bit money grabby when it especially comes to the Open. That $20 that you invest into the Opens just seems to disappear into thin dust, and you may say it's funding the games, but as this year comes around, the games is at the ranch, which is owned by Dave Castro. What kind of funding can they kind of come around when there's pretty much the CrossFit Games is the free CrossFit Games this year and everyone's going to be watching from the comfort of their own home? So what can we do as spectators, as people, as supporters of our favorite CrossFit athletes? Well, if your CrossFit athlete does have some sort of a sponsorship, instead of buying it from the store, you can use their code to definitely support their athletes. Of course, if they're selling junk, tell them to get fucked. But at the same time, let's make sure that we support the athletes that we love so that they can keep living the dream and working as hard as they have been, except live a little bit more comfortably. CrossFit athletes have it tough. Let's try and not make it a little bit tougher. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. This video was inspired by Z. He had the idea and he gave me the idea that CrossFit athletes are severely underpaid. Him, myself, and everyone were having a conversation about it on the weekend. So I hope you guys enjoy my little rant. Without further ado, I hope you guys stay a beast.